على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Yesterday we discussed several incidents in the lives of the Akabirin, the elders, regarding their taqwa and piety. So taqwa is the essence of everything. And when taqwa develops, all the various other qualities that are related also develop. So the primary thing is taqwa. For example, one of the major qualities that should be in every person is the quality of haya. Haya means modesty, shame, but these are very broad translations of the word haya. It cannot really do justice to the actual meaning of haya, which is mentioned in the manner, in the context in which it is used in the Quran and Sunnah. But in any case, this modesty, shame, this too can only really develop to the extent that a person has developed taqwa. In the hadith, for example, it is mentioned that al-imanu wal-haya'u qurana'u jami'a. Haya and iman, they coexist, they are companions. Iman, taqwa, when we talk about taqwa, we are talking about the same iman. To the extent that taqwa has been developed, iman is strengthened. So these are all used in a manner of the same context, same words, different words with the same meaning, synonyms. So in the Hadith Sharif now, these two aspects are being mentioned side by side. Iman, taqwa, and on the other aspect is haya. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying, إِذَا رُفِعَ أَحَدُهُمَا رُفِعَ الْآخَرُ. That when iman goes, then haya will go. Or the other way around, when haya goes, iman will go. So what we understand is that the developing of taqwa will develop haya. Because a person has the fear of Allah Ta'ala, then he'll have shame from Allah Ta'ala also. Sometimes that haya diminishes to the point where the person had no shame for Allah Ta'ala, and then eventually he has no shame for insan also. Whereas there's a thing like haya for Allah Ta'ala also. In the word shame and modesty, that meaning can't come in anywhere. But there is this part of it also. One person one day asked Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the advice that was given is that a person should refrain from exposing himself unnecessarily. Unnecessarily, one should not expose oneself. So somebody asked the question that what if I am alone in privacy? Sometimes we get these kind of emails and questions coming from women that when I'm in my privacy, then I dress in a different way, just to make myself happy. Otherwise I go outside, then I have for any genuine need I leave the home, then I am dressed in a proper way, Islamically. But inside the home I dress in my own way, which is obviously what is being referred to far away from the requirements and dictates of sharam and haya. So in any case, this person asked this question, that what if a person is in privacy? So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam replied, فَاللَّهُ أَحَقُّ أَن يُسْتَحْيَا مِنْهُ. Allah Ta'ala is more deserving that you be adopting haya from Him. So in the situation of necessity, accordingly, obviously within the home, the aspect of parda, etc., in terms of woman is much more relaxed, obvious. But there's a limit and there's a line of haya. And that haya from Allah Ta'ala. So when a person is alone also, Allah Ta'ala is watching, Allah Ta'ala is with. So this haya, to the extent that taqwa has been developed, haya will be developed. This particular aspect of haya from Allah Ta'ala, this just brings to mind one hadith sharif. Whatever comes to mind, Allah Ta'ala puts it in the heart. Allah Ta'ala make it useful for us. So we might as well discuss that as we're going along. Once Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to the Sahaba Ikram that adopt haya from Allah Ta'ala in the manner that you should be adopting haya from Allah Ta'ala. Istahyu min Allahi haqqal haya. Fulfill the haqq and the right of haya with Allah Ta'ala. Now we generally understand haya from people, but haya from Allah Ta'ala. So the Sahaba Ikram, they were obviously very, very conscious of haya, and they understood haya from Allah Ta'ala also in a certain sense. So they replied, we adopt haya from Allah Ta'ala. Walhamdulillah. Allah Ta'ala shukr, alhamdulillah, we have haya. Nabi Islam said, no, I'm not referring to what you have in your mind. What you have in your mind also is a very limited understanding of haya. What I'm explaining is a very, very comprehensive and a broad meaning and a very broad concept. It's very comprehensive in that it has many dimensions to it. Then Nabi Islam explained, وَلَكِنَّ الْإِسْتِحْيَاءَ مِنَ اللَّهِ حَقَّ الْحَيَاءِ أَن تَحْفَظَ الرَّأْسَ وَمَا وَعَى. The first part of haya from Allah Ta'ala. Now all this is related to taqwa as well. The first part of haya from Allah Ta'ala is that you guard the head and whatever it encompasses. Guard the head and everything in the area of the head. Now one meaning of that is that in the region of the head, so the head, the face is all part of the head, in that sense, above the neck. You say you cut the person's head off, you cut it from the neck, you don't just take the scalp out. So in any case, it refers to guarding the eyes. So this is in the region of the head now. So now haya from Allah Ta'ala includes guarding the eyes. The person sometimes is first looking that nobody else is watching what I'm doing, so why he's doing that? He's ashamed of somebody else watching. He's ashamed of somebody else knowing what he's doing. So when he's ashamed of somebody else, be ashamed Allah Ta'ala is watching. So to guard the eyes, to guard the ears, this is all in the region of the head now. To guard the tongue, this is all part of haya from Allah Ta'ala. Sometimes a person says something which he shouldn't be saying, it's not a correct thing to say. So when it's not the right thing to say, somebody might reprimand him that you got no shame. Now why was he reprimanded? That the way he used his tongue was shameless. Because when a person doesn't have haya, in the hadith Nabi Islam says, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاسْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. When you have no haya, no shame, no modesty, then you'll do what you wish. Then a person has no restrictions. Haya is the brakes within. Haya is the brakes within a person. Like a vehicle, a car, now the manufacturer has made the car. The car can travel at 240 kilometers an hour. But now imagine there's no brakes in that car. They never put any brakes in there. So the first journey would become the last journey. That first journey, the navigation, you put on the address there. So this navigation only have one address, Qabristan. So because there's no brakes and it can travel at that speed. So it'll be a one-way trip to the grave. So therefore, to the extent that that car can travel, what speeds it can do, accordingly that powerful brakes are also in it. Because without these brakes, this is extremely dangerous, it is fatal, lethal. So insan, Allah Ta'ala has created insan for the hikmat that Allah Ta'ala had put into the whole creation and for the purposes that Allah Ta'ala wishes this human race to continue till the day of Qiyamah. So Allah Ta'ala created insan with various needs, various emotions, various feelings. So this is part of insan. When the child is born, the child has needs. Immediately the child needs to be fed, needs to be clothed, has a need for shelter. Then as time goes along, the child grows up into a young person. Then further needs develop. It's part of insan, part of human nature. But while these needs are there, which are very, very deep, very strong, but naturally Allah Ta'ala has created the breaks within insan as well. The breaks of haya. And haya is such a natural thing, a person doesn't have to go to any madrasa to learn haya. It is inborn, but it can be lost. It can be lost. If a person doesn't look after it, can lose it. But it's inborn, nobody has to go to learn haya anywhere. Hazrat Imam Masihullah Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi, once in his majlis was taking place, and two little girls, small girls, maybe 3-4 years of age. So somebody sent them in with some note or something, some message to come and give it to Hazrat. So now the majlis was in progress, and these two little girls came in. So everybody is obviously observing what's happening, how they're coming in. So as they were coming in, so one is trying to hide behind the other. Now how can you really hide? You're walking together. But now each one is trying to hide behind the other, trying to duck behind the other. And they came and very shyly gave that note or that message, whatever it was, and in that same manner they went away. Two little 3-4 years old. Now they didn't go to any place to learn, any madrasa to sit them down and teach them something that, look, there's a concept called haya. Obviously, 3-4-year-old, who's going to teach them these things formally? So in any case, everybody had observed this. So Hazrat Rahmatullah Alayhi, he stopped what he was discussing and he said, Dekha, you all saw? He said, Isko kehte haya. That this is haya. And he said that, remember very well, that this is something that is natural, लेकिन अगर गुम हो जाए तो बहुत मुश्किल से वापस आती है. This is natural, it's not something that you have to go anywhere to learn. But if it gets lost, it's very difficult to bring it back. It's a natural quality, but it has to be looked after. Like a person inherited wealth, he worked nothing for it, it came for free. It doesn't mean now that inherited wealth came for free, so now he's going to just stay with him. He's going to have to look after it. Otherwise, many a times, things that come for free, male muft, dile beraham. Male muft, dile beraham. One person was saying that he happened to be, long ago story, so he happened to be at one stop street robot, young person. So somebody else pulled in alongside. Unfortunately, all these kind of things people find some thrill in. So he said, you don't want to race till the next robot. So in any case, now that was not such a, he said, according to him, it wasn't such a fast car or whatever. So he said, fine, very well. Any case, when he got there, at the next point, that car almost beat him despite him having a faster car. So he opened the window and he asked that chap, whatever it is, I have no idea all these things. So he asked him, is it really that model? Meaning that lower level model, whatever it is, wallahu alam. Like a 4-cylinder, it's not a 6-cylinder, it's really that 4-cylinder only. Because it's looking like it's a 6-cylinder. So this fellow's answer was, don't worry about 4-cylinder, I don't know whether it's 4-cylinder or not, it's a hired car. So it's a hired car, that was his answer. So it's a hired car, it doesn't matter to me how I use it. Whether it is used, abused, I'll just go and deliver it, finish, end of story. Whoever is going to pay for that, he will pay for it. So dile male muf dile beraham. Something comes for nothing, person has no appreciation for it. Illa mashallah. So in any case, we're talking about this haya, that it's a natural inborn thing, but it's not going to stay on its own. It has to be protected. It has to be guarded. It has to be looked after. So how this gets lost, that's another whole issue on its own. Just to complete this hadith sharif first. So the first thing Nabi Islam mentioned, looking after the head and whatever is in its region. So guarding the eyes, guarding the tongue, guarding the ears, guarding the mind. Can you imagine if there was some kind of situation that where a person is thinking something, it's flashing on a screen somewhere. There's some hidden camera inside his mind, and whatever he's thinking is playing out on some screen somewhere, computer screen somewhere. And like you have security, there's somebody sitting there watching what's going on. So what's going on under this, mashallah, beautiful topi, zulfa, and under all the beautiful appearances, what's going on under the surface? This is flashing on that screen there. Now maybe his parents are watching it. Maybe somebody's wife is watching it. Somebody's husband is looking at it. Somebody's ustad is seeing what's going on. Can a person, when he's aware that this is a situation, what is going on in my mind, somebody else is watching. Any person who has one iota of shame, too much of haya also is not even required. One iota of shame, can he continue thinking in a wrong way? Can he continue deliberately just cooking haram thoughts? Impossible. You say, how can I do this? How embarrassing it would be when I have to now face everybody again. I won't be able to bring myself out in public. So that consciousness that he has out of shame for people, that is the consciousness that is to be developed for Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala is watching. Allah Ta'ala is aware. Allah Ta'ala is knows what's going through my heart and mind. يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْأَعْيُنِ وَمَا تُخْفِي الصُّدُورِ. He knows the deception of the eye and what the heart conceals. Now these muraqabahs that we speak about and that we are, alhamdulillah, practicing, and on an ongoing basis we should be doing this, these are all part of these muraqabahs. To be sitting and thinking about this as well. Allah Ta'ala is aware of what is passing through my heart and mind. And what did I think about yesterday? Astaghfirullah. How could I have thought about these things? Allah Ta'ala is aware of it. So, to chastise oneself, reprimand oneself. We only reprimand ourselves also and others if there was some material loss. One glass breaks, and that too would be a cause of great disturbance for us. Our child broke it, then that child might get reprimanded severely too. And if we broke it, then we'll feel like our heart broke. But only for material things. But the command of Allah Ta'ala broke, or we did something against the dictates of haya from Allah Ta'ala, that doesn't cause us any disturbance, any embarrassment within ourselves, any shame. So the first thing Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is explaining this aspect of haya, أن تحفظ الرأس وما وعى والبطن وما حوى. And you look after the stomach and what it contains. Yesterday we discussed this in detail, the aspect of what we eat. We are what we eat. There's a common statement, a person is what he eats. And it's very true. And that is one of, Kabir mentioned this just as a point, that you'll find the greatest amount of shamelessness in those communities that eat pork. You'll find the highest degree of shamelessness in those communities. Because they are eating that. So that haya goes completely. So in any case, this was the second thing Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned. وَأَن تَحْفَظَ الرَّأْسَ وَمَا وَعَى وَأَن تَحْفَظَ الْبَطَنَ وَمَا حَوَى وَأَن تَذْكُرَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْبِلَى. And that you remember death and the disintegrating in the grave, the decaying of that corpse in the grave. This is the thing that will develop that haya further. This remembrance of death. And developing this remembrance of death, to the extent that will develop, this haya will come. Person is now all the time conscious. How can I carry on thinking in this way, doing this, looking at that, and tomorrow I'm going to have to, today I might end up lying in the grave. and I will have to answer for what I was doing. And further Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then says, وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةَ تَرَكَ زِينَةَ الدُّنْيَا وَزَهْرَتَهَا. The one who is truly intending to gain the success of the hereafter. Because the world is temporary, very temporary. The world is as temporary as one moment. The world is as temporary as one moment. What does this mean? If a person goes away now, so how long his world lasted now? From now, 1 moment later he's gone, so that's his 1 moment left. So in his regard, and every moment somebody is going. Each moment somebody or the other, somebody is going. When our number comes up, Allah knows. So, if our time has come, then we got 1 moment left. Our world is 1 moment left now. So that's how temporary this world is. So when this is how temporary it is, our focus should be the akhirat. We will do whatever is necessary for the world in the manner of a traveler. Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib aw abiru sabil. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, be in the world, live in the world, ka'annaka gharib, like a stranger. Now a person has come, he's a traveler, he's a musafir, so he's a stranger. When he comes now, he will come to the masjid, he'll perform his salah, he might be perhaps hungry or something, he'll go somewhere to buy some food, and he'll move on. Now he has to eat, but because he has to eat, now he doesn't first go to some furniture shop, that he wants to buy a very good table. And then he wants to buy some very comfortable chairs, as it is, should be sitting on the dastarkhan and eating. But in any case now, first he'll go to some furniture shop to buy some very comfortable chair. Why? Because he has to sit and have lunch somewhere. And then he'll want to maybe to eat in a place where there's a good scenery, so maybe his food will digest better. So now he buys something that will give him some good kind of effect. By the time he buys all that and sets it up, it'll be supper time already. So he is not interested in all that. He needs to fill his stomach. He does whatever, even if it is not to his taste. But I'm on the road now. Soon I'll reach home. Even if this is cold already, doesn't matter now. On the road you just make do. Very soon when I reach home, I'll have a hot meal. Then I'll have a comfortable bed. Then I'll enjoy all the comforts of my home. Now on the road, just make do with whatever it is. So we are in that make do situation. This is the lesson Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is giving. Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib, like a stranger. But now sometimes you get a stranger who also is going to be stationed somewhere. He's a stranger, but he's going to be staying here for 10 days, 20 days. So he makes himself a little bit more comfortable. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, no, not just like a stranger. Aw abiru sabil. Aw is in the meaning of bal. Rather like just a traveler, not just a person that's a stranger somewhere, one who is on the road, like the earlier example we took. So he is even less concerned about the things around him. He sees everything. He's traveling, he sees what's going on in the right, what's going on in the left. He can see the road. He sometimes stops to refuel. He stops to eat. He stops for whatever his necessities are. So the lesson that is being given is to be content with whatever is necessary. Necessary, make a person comfortable to the extent of whatever is reasonable, no problem with that. But he doesn't hanker after the world. He doesn't make the world his objective. He doesn't make it his focus. So then he knows his home is ahead. When he reaches his home, Jannat, there he will have mala aynun ra'at, wala udhunun sami'at, wala khatara ala qalbi bashar. What no eye has seen, no ear has heard of, and no heart can even imagine. All this will be at home. This is on the road now. So in any case, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying, the person who truly has intended to reach the akhirat and receive the success of the hereafter, taraka zinata dunya wa zahrataha, then he doesn't get caught up in the glitter and glamour of the world. He doesn't get caught up with the glitter and glamour of the world. And he continues, he makes do with whatever is necessary. So the lesson was of haya. So this haya is something that is natural, it is inborn, but it can be lost. And what is the thing that, among the things that causes haya to be lost? One is the environment. One is the environment. The environment is has a very deep effect, an impact on a person. Positively, if there's a positive environment. Negatively, if there's a negative environment. There's one story. This is perhaps just one of those stories, as they call it, from the Lal Kitab. Doesn't have any real basis in terms of somebody goes to look for the reference now. But there's a moral behind it. So one person had gone to live in one village, a remote place. He had some work to be there. So had to be there for a while, for a long time. Now when he got there was a very strange thing that he noticed. So what he noticed there was everybody had the tips of their nose cut. Now can you imagine a person with the tip of his nose cut? In Urdu, there's a saying, uski naak kat gayi. That is a figure of expression when somebody has been humiliated. He feels now he was disgraced. Says, naak kat gayi. Now this was in literal terms, sabki naak kat gayi. So now their noses were cut off. This person is looking at this strange sight. Look at this, how it's carrying on. All these people are looking so funny. But now he had to stay there. Now he was the one with the right and the good nose, the normal nose. But after 1 or 2 days, he's noticing every time he's passing anybody, then they are looking at him in a funny way. And they're nudging one another. Say, look at this fellow's nose. So 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, everybody is nudging one another. Everybody is now sniggering at him. So he thought, now how long he's going to carry on like this? After a week or so, he went and cut his nose too. Uski bhi naak kat gayi. Now he got caught up in the environment. And the abnormal environment now became so overwhelming on him that in inverted commas he decided to become normal. So in order to conform, he cut his nose, literally and figuratively too. So what brought this? Now this might just be an example, but let us think about it in a more broader scale. How many things people do just in order to conform to whatever that particular circle is. Person has adopted a certain circle, got caught up in a certain group of friends, or there's something going on, some style or some fashion has hit the town. Now just in order to fit in, many a person finds it ridiculous. Like for example, certain types of haircut, where the whole sides are all shaved off and the top is resembling maybe some kind of mop or something. Now before the fashion hit the town, if you had to tell a youngster, I'll give you 1,000 rands, you cut your hair like this. He said, give me 100,000, I'm not prepared for it. I'll become the mockery of the town. But that was only just maybe 1 day before the fashion hit the town. And 1 day later, he'll say, even for free I'm doing it. Why? Because he now suddenly wants to fit in. Everybody suddenly started doing it. Where it started off from, Allah knows best. But now because something has hit the town, now his circle of friends have that. So he is going to look odd with the decent hair. With the decent kind of haircut, he's going to look odd. So he has to now fit in. So this is exactly the situation that we keep humiliating ourselves, disgracing ourselves in order to conform to that environment. We compromise on our principles. We drop the guard in whichever case it's supposed to be. We are prepared to do things that are totally ridiculous when we get caught up in an environment of that nature. That is the power of environment. And unfortunately, we are in an environment, wherever it is, illa mashallah, where shamelessness has become the norm. Whether it is the electronic media, whatever is in people's hands, every person has got that device in his hand, which is a very, very useful and a very dangerous tool. Very useful and an extremely dangerous tool. That phone. One attorney was saying that 70%, currently, that one particular attorney, his office, 70% of the divorces that they are handling are cell phone related. 70% of the divorces that his office is handling currently are cell phone related. What a kind of disaster this is bringing in society. But now this, when haya drops, and this itself is further killing the haya, and everything goes, the husband is sitting, and then the shamelessness even reaches such a proportion that then in full view of his wife also he is chatting to others. Haram chat is involved in. And vice versa. These are not hypothetical situations, unfortunately tragic real life situations. Where this comes from? The breakdown of haya. That person had no haya from Allah Ta'ala, and then it dropped to such a point there's no haya from even insan. So when this haya drops, so now these are the things that break down this haya. That television, what is the sum total of it? After that family has sat around that box, what haya can remain? Between father and daughter, between son and mother, all are jointly sitting and watching that lurid scenes. What haya can remain? The newspaper. I recall, I must have been maybe, from the time I was conscious of it, so I might have been 6, 7 years old, maybe a little bit more, 7, 8 years old. Our neighbors, they had a cafe. So early in the morning, at their house, they used to receive their deliveries and then they would take it to their shop. So their newspapers and whatever else used to be all delivered to their house. My father used to tell me to go and buy the newspaper every now and again. He used to give me the money, I used to just go next door. In the same yard it was actually. So buy it and come. So I was barely conscious that this is a newspaper. From that time I can recall, now we're talking about 40 years ago story. At that time, if what is in the newspapers had to come in that newspaper at that time, 40 years ago, then let alone a Muslim, even the kuffar would have torn it in disgust. Because that was a general standard that time. That would have been regarded as pornographic that time. So what I'm trying to get at is that that newspaper would have been a far cry from whatever it is today. But from that zamana, I can very clearly recall that I know that I used to bring that newspaper in which form, and immediately I would hear certain things getting torn. And later on you would see it lying around with something torn here, something torn there. Something that was remotely not conducive to haya. That would first get torn out. I'm talking about 40 years ago. So this was a lesson, but this was something natural in people. Allah Ta'ala filled their qabrs with nur. But this was something that was the norm. There was a standard. But nowadays, what is the position? That newspaper is lying in front of everybody and anyone. Somebody is reading it and somebody else is watching what he's reading and everything is splashed out in front there. How many people got caught up in haram purely because after they started reading a newspaper, where they ended up, where they finished off? So is this something that is, can we take it casually? Now this is what is destroying that haya, this media. Then the things around us, the way the dressing is taking, what patterns the dressing is taking. Again the same kind of thing that we can think about, that the type of dressing, unfortunately many Muslim sister would adopt today. 30, 40 years ago, many a kafir woman would never have dreamt of you wearing that kind of clothes. This is the reality. But when the environment becomes something, many a times people write, one Muslim lady wrote, she's asking a question, but as a background to that question. She says that when I attend family functions, I'm too embarrassed to be there. Among women only, I'm too embarrassed to be there because of the kind of dressing. As a woman, among women, she's too embarrassed to be there. Now the question is that if I avoid these functions, am I going to be breaking family ties? Am I going to be guilty of this? That was the question, but this was the background to the question. That as a woman, she's embarrassed to be among women because of the kind of dressing. So where has it dropped to? And where does this start off from? Or what brings about this downfall and deterioration? The destruction of haya. And tahfazal ra'sa wa ma wa'a. All this is in the mind now. That environment affects that mind. Person feels like, if I don't conform to this, I'll be the one out. I'll be the odd one out. So I need to conform. So this flood of haya then sweeps through. In dressing, in manner, in the way of speech. It becomes just part of life then. But the danger is, and the greater danger is, that this doesn't remain at one point. When there's a slide, it keeps sliding. It keeps sliding, and as things happen, they'll bring something outrageous. But they'll bring it first very slowly. So it'll create a little bit of an uproar. Then they'll bring it out more. And then people get used to the idea. And then that will become one day, after a while, old-fashioned. First it created an uproar. Then it got a little bit of acceptance in society. Then it became the norm. And after becoming the norm, short while later it becomes outdated. Now when that goes out of fashion, something worse has to come. And people who need to make money out of this, they have to keep changing it. They can't change it for the better, because the better is too old-fashioned. So it has to get worse. And this is the danger, this is what we have to be now come very conscious of, to reverse the tide, to turn the tide backwards. We will have to accept to be outdated. We'll have to get the minds of our families made to become outdated. To move backwards. Everybody seems to be very in fashion, we are going to be out of fashion. Otherwise, Allah forbid, when the next generation comes, what is going to be the condition? Because this carries on sliding. It doesn't stop at one point. It gets worse because people need to make money out of this. So they can't make it better. They'll have to keep making it worse. Because haya is gone. So they are buyers. They are takers for it. So this haya is a very, very fundamental ingredient in an insan, and more so in a mu'min. Without this iman, without this haya, iman is in danger. And this hadith that we discussed earlier, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاسْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. Then do what you wish. When haya goes, adab will go. Many times, as we probably discussed the example earlier, person has said something disrespectful. Now the conduct or the statement was disrespectful. But what is the reprimand? The parent or somebody else will reprimand the child or whoever said that. So the reprimand is often that you got no shame. So the conduct was disrespectful, but the reprimand is on shame. Because this disrespect has stemmed out of the lack of shame. When there won't be shame, there won't be haya, then there won't be respect also. It doesn't matter to a person who he is talking to, how he is talking. He's got no haya, so he'll have no bother. Because it's haya is those breaks. As we spoke about earlier, Allah Ta'ala created insan with these feelings, with these desires, with these passions. This is part of human nature. Allah Ta'ala provided him the breaks also. The breaks are haya. So he has to develop that breaks. He has to use it and develop it. And all these things, the more it is used, the stronger it gets. like the muscles of the body. Person keeps training, those muscles are there. If he keeps training, it gets stronger. And in time, first he couldn't carry even 10 kilos easily. In time, that same person is now carrying 50 kilos, he's carrying 100 kilos like it's nothing. Why? Because he carried on using it. And he carried on pushing it further. So likewise, these qualities, these sifats, the more a person keeps adopting haya, the more that haya strengthens. This is something not conducive to haya, so I'm not going to be part of it. I'm going to be far away from it. So the more he keeps adopting haya, the more that haya strengthens, the more it is enlightened within him. And the lesser a person uses those muscles, person sometimes gets sick, Allah forbid, somebody has had an accident, whatever, he's lying in bed for weeks on end. After a while he can't even seem to move his limbs, because the muscles start wasting away, because it's not being used. And then they have to now start training him to get mobile again, physiotherapy and whatever else. So likewise, these qualities, when they are not exercised, they are not used, they start wasting away, because the environment will impact on it, and it will start deteriorating, and in time, Allah forbid, it will vanish. So this sifat, the sifat are the main thing in the life of a person. Unfortunately, we try to enhance ourselves externally. This is the whole world's focus. Find the cosmetic industry is among the biggest industries in the world, running into the billions. And what is this cosmetic industry all about? How to enhance oneself externally. But make oneself look what one is not. Like how in other things also in life, we spend money to buy things what we don't need. We buy things with money we don't have to start off with. We buy things with money we don't have. Person is buying it on credit, he doesn't even have the money. So we buy things with money we don't have, things that we don't need, with money we don't have, to impress people we don't like. To impress people we don't like. I got something on with somebody, so now he did something, so I have to do something better. He bought a car, so I have to show that I can buy something better. You think you can drive in a 6-cylinder, I can drive in an 8-cylinder. So why are we doing it? Is there any need for it? No, there's no need for it. He's got a certain phone, so I can be smarter. I'll buy a smartphone. So why? I don't even have the money for it. I'm buying something with money I don't have, something I don't need, but just to impress somebody I don't like. So likewise, this cosmetic industry is just to make us look what we are not. But that outer thing doesn't, it's just on the surface. And if the reality is something else inside, then that reality will show itself out. The issue is to adorn the inside. If the inside is adorned, it will shine on the outside also. And the adornment of inside is these sifat, these qualities, akhlaq. All those jewels and all those adornments will all lose its luster in a moment. Can we imagine this as an example, that a person got married. He got married to somebody who he was trying to get married to for a long time. So what ambitions and aspirations now have been building up in his heart and mind. And now finally he got married. And she came with all the finest jewelry and the best of all the other luxuries, and brought in all the wealth along with it. And now in all this, and she is blessed with all the beauty as well. But in the first meeting now, she's talking to him in an abrupt manner. So already he gets a shock. And then 1-2 days have passed already, but still the same thing is getting worse. She's not even using languages on him. So he is saying that this was supposed to be the honeymoon, but it seems the eclipse started before the new moon. He's in total darkness. Now what happens? The person outwardly is the same. In fact, all that adornments are even more now. All that finest jewelry is still there. All the best of clothing is still there. All that external beauty is still there. But after a few days, merely to look at her will pain him. There'll be a hatred in his heart. And turn the whole scene around. If his character is like that, then she'll have a hatred in her heart to look at him. Merely hearing him enter the house will be like a musibat. It'll be like now some disaster is now falling in. Whereas outwardly the person is the same. Outwardly all that wealth is still there. He still has that fancy car. He's still wearing all that branded clothing. He still has that 100,000 rand watch on his hand. And I heard that somebody can buy a watch 100,000. I didn't know there was something that existed like that. To see the time, 100,000. Time is valuable. But to see it is for free. So in any case, outwardly everything is still the same. But to look at that person now becomes a real pain. What has happened? The internal issues, what is inside, has shown itself outside. It now blinded everybody from what the outside is, because now the inside has exposed itself. So now the attraction of the outside is gone. There's a hatred now. So the outside doesn't make a person. The outside doesn't bring anything for the person. It's the inside. And if a person is not blessed with too much of beauty outside, doesn't have all the trimmings and trappings, doesn't have all the wealth in the world, but the person has the adornments of the inside, then it will compensate for everything that is missing outside. Person will say, I'm prepared to do without all the luxuries, without all the comforts. I'll eat half slice also, doesn't matter. But this person has akhlaq, I'll stay with him. I'm ready to undergo whatever this husband of mine has to undergo. But he's a person with akhlaq. He is a person who has real adornments within him. So this is the thing that we have to aspire for. This is what we have to work for. This is what we have to make an effort for. To beautify and adorn the heart. The real jewels are those that are inside. The jewels of hayaa, of contentment, of simplicity, of taqwa, of humility, of kindness and compassion, of forgiveness, overlooking the faults of others. All these are the adornments of inside. These are the real jewels. Otherwise, the outward things, today a person has it, tomorrow is gone. These are all fleeting things. These are ni'mats also. Person has earned it in a halal way. He's using it correctly. Alhamdulillah, it's a ni'mat. But this is not something that makes a person. What makes a person is what is inside. This is what we have to be guarding, what we have to be looking after. We started off discussing the aspect of haya. The intention was to discuss something else, but whatever Allah Ta'ala willed. In any case, this is something, as we said, that these are the factors that break down this haya. We have to become super conscious about this. That what is happening in our homes? What kind of environment is there? Is this environment enhancing haya or destroying haya? Environment outside, what are we bringing in our home? Outside we have to guard ourselves, because that environment outside is gone extremely shameless. We will have to guard ourselves. We will have to make the conscious effort to protect ourselves and our families. Hazrat Wala Rahmatullah Alayhi, his one statement used to be that when a person leaves the home, then now whatever is going to be outside is obvious. So, adam-e qasd-e nazar, these used to be his words. Adam-e qasd-e nazar kafi nahi hai. In other words, a person is leaving home just blank. He doesn't have any intention. Any intention of committing wrong he doesn't have. But he hasn't made any conscious intention of not committing wrong also. He just come out blank, meaning empty-minded in that sense. This is not good enough. his first step he'll get caught up. Qasde adam nazar zaruri hai. Qasde adam nazar zaruri hai. He will have to make a conscious intention before stepping out. I'm going to guard my gaze. I'm not going to look around anywhere. I'm not going to do anything that is going to be against the commands of Allah Ta'ala. Till he doesn't make those conscious intentions before stepping out, he's in danger, severe danger. He'll get swept away in one moment, he won't know what happened. So now we have to become even more conscious of making these conscious intentions. This qasde adab nazar. I'm going to guard my hayaa. I'm going to guard my gaze. I'm going to guard my ears. I'm going to guard my heart. And how are we going to guard all these things? Now, it's a dangerous environment. So like an environment now, there's some gas leak. In India, once there was a gas leak in one city. So, over 5,000 people lost their lives. I met one person not long ago from that same area, Ahmedabad, of some part of it. So he says, up to now, that's now maybe 15, 20 years or more, that whole town is still sealed off because the effects of that gas are still there. So that's a ghost town now. Can't even go there. Nobody's allowed to go there. The whole place has been sealed off. So now a person doesn't go there because it's so dangerous. And if out of some desperate need somebody had to go, so how he'll protect himself? He'll wear some gas mask and go, oxygen mask. Mustn't breathe those toxic fumes. He'll take all his protection. If it is an extremely dangerous situation, he'll wear some protective clothing. So our protection is the zikr of Allah Ta'ala. So we will leave home first with that conscious intentions. And then leave with the zikr of Allah Ta'ala. And keep that zikr as our protection and guard throughout. And then after returning, he'll still wash himself. That maybe there's still something has come up. We'll still wash ourselves with istighfar. That whatever effects have come, then that too must get washed off. So in this way, when a person will continue, Allah Ta'ala will then make it easy for him to remain steadfast. So this is that very vital and important quality of hayaa, which we have to keep checking within ourselves, looking into our environments, what we are doing, where we are heading to, what is going to harm this hayaa. Keep that out of the place. If that newspaper has to come in out of necessity for some people's business, whatever the case is, then we tear off whatever is going to destroy that hayaa. Some article gets lost with it is better than our iman getting lost. Some article gets torn is better than our hayaa getting torn. To start off with, these things we are best without. One lady, elderly person, was finding she was all the time being depressed. So she wrote to one alim. So he asked one or two questions, and then he told her, after just asking one or two things, that look, just stop completely listening to any news or reading any newspapers. Just stop all this. She was somehow almost 24/7 on some channels, whatever. They just shut all this off. Nothing else he told her. There's one thing only he told her. He shut all this off. And barely 2-3 weeks went, she said, Alhamdulillah, all this has gone. I'm feeling completely comfortable and relaxed now. I've just shut all these things off completely from my life. Make dua for everybody. Remember all the Muslims throughout the world in your duas. And carry on. What you can do for them, you do for them. But just merely as news items, knowing what's going on here and there, and it has just become like some kind of news item. It doesn't even move us. We rather be turning to Allah Ta'ala. Whatever else we can do in some way, monetarily, etc. we do. And the main thing is dua. So these things are of no real need to us. But out of genuine need, somebody has to bring these things in his home. Then he must be taking these precautions. And all the other forms of media and those things in our hands, we have to become super conscious of how we use it. And the ideal thing is that we rather be smart and not have these smartphones if we can't use it correctly. Rather use something that will only make a call. As mentioned earlier, that according to that one attorney, 70% of divorces are cell phone related in his office. So let us become conscious of this quality of haya, make dua for it as well, and we exercise it all the time. Allah Ta'ala give me tawfiq as well, give all of us tawfiq. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.